We're all working together. Untitled WO1 WeatherNet. Liftoff conditions looking pretty good.
ESPS is ready for launch.
Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower.
Ten, 9, 8.
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, November 24th, and you're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 9:13 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Hello from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name is Kate Tice, and I'm a senior certification engineer here at SpaceX. You're watching a live webcast for our 16th Starlink mission and our 23rd mission this year. This mission is also notable because with today's launch, we are attempting to fly a Falcon 9 booster for the 7th time. If you've been following our progress, you also know that we recently launched our Better Than Nothing beta program in the northern US and southern Canada. So I'll be sure to talk all about that a little bit later in the webcast. We're currently at T-minus 9.5 minutes till launch, and all systems are go for an on-time liftoff this evening.
Good evening. My name is Shiva Bharadwaj, and I'm a space operations engineer here at SpaceX. On your screen is a live view of Falcon 9. That's our two-stage liquid-fueled vehicle. Now, Falcon 9 is 70 meters tall, which is greater than the wingspan of a 747 aircraft. As Kate had mentioned previously, we are flying today's booster for the 7th time. That's a first for Falcon 9. This rocket previously flew on the Telstar 18 Vantage mission, the Iridium 7 mission, as well as 4 Starlink missions. Now, Falcon 9 was designed for 10 or more flights with minimal refurbishment in between each flight, and today's flight will get us closer to that goal. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle is what we refer to as the first stage. You can actually tell it from the soot markings left over from its previous 6 flights. Now, the first stage's job is to accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space with the help of 9 Merlin engines that it has at the base of the rocket. We will be attempting to recover this first stage for the 7th time on our drone ship named Of Course I Still Love You, pictured on your screen, about 630 or so kilometers downrange. Now, on top of the first stage is our black carbon fiber inner stage, and on top of that is Falcon 9's second stage. It has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine, and once the first and second stages separate about 2.5 minutes into the mission, that Merlin vacuum engine will ignite and carry the 60 Starlink satellites into an elliptical orbit around planet Earth. Now, Falcon 9 has been loading propellants since about T-minus 35 minutes. We use a rocket-grade kerosene or rocket propellant 1, RP1, as our fuel, and super-chilled liquid oxygen, or LOX, as our oxidizer to power the Falcon 9. Now, propellants are nearly fully loaded on both the first and second stages, where we'll be continuing to top up the liquid oxygen until the final minutes of the countdown. Now, at the very top of the rocket is our nose cone structure. That's what we call the satellite fairing. That's where the stack of those 60 Starlink satellites is safely housed. The fairing's job is to protect those satellites from aerothermal heating, aerodynamic loads, and contamination during ascent. And once we reach the vacuum of space, we'll actually jettison them back as the second stage will continue on its journey to orbit. We are flying a flight-proven fairing today. It'll be the second flight for one of the halves and the third flight for the other. And our recovery vessels, Mischief and Go Searcher, will be attempting to recover those fairing halves today by scooping them out of the water. Now, a quick update on the weather. We've been tracking some minor cumulus clouds and actually wind in the area, but overall we are at an 80% chance of go, so keeping an eye on those winds. But other than that, vehicle, satellites, weather, and the range all looking good for an on-time liftoff just a few minutes from now.
As many of you know, Starlink is a constellation of satellites that can provide high-speed, low-latency internet all over the globe, particularly in remote or rural areas where connectivity is limited or completely unavailable. To date, SpaceX has launched nearly 900 Starlink satellites to orbit. Less than a month ago, we rolled out our Better Than Nothing beta service to the northern US, and just last week, we rolled out service to parts of southern Canada. During our first public beta, users can expect to see data speeds vary from 50 megabits per second to 150 megabits per second, and latency vary from 20 milliseconds to 40 milliseconds. There will also be brief periods of no connectivity at all. As we launch more satellites, install more ground stations, and improve our networking software, data speed, latency, and uptime will all improve dramatically. For latency, we expect to achieve 16 to 19 milliseconds by summer 2021. Right now, our beta program is invitation only, and it is based entirely on your location. Within the northern US and southern Canada, we are focused on rural and remote areas where there is no easy access to fiber or cable. Now, on your screen there, you see an example of one of our service areas, or what we call a cell. This particular cell is in an area of Minnesota near the town of Hitterdal. Hey, Hitterdal, folks. So, based on this example, if you lived in Hitterdal, Hawley, Winnipeg Junction, or the nearby area, we could probably service you. But if, for example, you lived in Lake Park, you'd be just outside of our current coverage area. Now, we have cells like this all over the northern US and Canada within the 45 to 53 degree latitudes. And with every launch of Starlink satellites, we enable our team to serve more and more of these cells. If you're hoping to receive an invite, all you need is a bit of patience. At our current pace, we expect to expand our beta in a notable way very early next year, in the late January-February timeframe. If that sounds interesting to you, head over to starlink.com and sign up.
We're just over 4 minutes away from liftoff. Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of countdown. Now, at this point, the first and second stages are fully loaded with RP1 and nearly fully loaded with liquid oxygen. There's almost 1 million pounds of both of those propellants on the vehicle. Super chilled liquid oxygen, which I mentioned earlier, is our propellant oxidizer, is actually what's creating that white cloud that you see coming off of Falcon 9's inner stage. That's what happens when that cold liquid oxygen comes into contact with the moist Florida air and causes water vapor to condense into clouds. We'll be continuing to top up the liquid oxygen on both the first and second stage. We'll expect to hear a call out here for LOX load closeout on the first stage at about T-3 minutes. And then about a minute after that, T-2 minutes, we'll hear a similar call out for the second stage. And you can really get a sense of the wind right on the pad from those streams from the liquid oxygen venting off the stage.
Pogo bleed verification.
Now, coming up at about, again, we'll have at T-2 minutes, LOX load closeout on the second stage. And then at T-60 seconds, Falcon 9 will transition into startup. That means that the rocket's internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown, and they'll continue to have control of the vehicle through the rest of the mission. At this point, the Starlink payload also continues to look healthy. Falcon 9 team not tracking any issues on the vehicle. The big watch item right now is the winds. They were projected to dip right around the launch window, again, about 2 minutes away from now. Keeping an eye on those, making sure that we don't violate any launch commit criteria. Wide shot there of
LOX closeout.
Wide shot there of the pad and the call from the prop team that stage 2 LOX loading is complete. With that, propellants are fully loaded on Falcon 9. Coming up here, we will have a pretty large white cloud of venting coming from the transporter erector. That's the truss structure next to Falcon 9. And it provides power, cooling, and propellants, as well as communication to Falcon 9 until liftoff. coming up, transition to startup on Falcon 9.
Falcon 9's in startup.
So again, that means from here, Falcon 9 will begin to pressurize those tanks, the first stage and second stage tanks with our pressurant for flight.
LDs go for launch.
Great news from the launch director,
Stage 2, press for flight.
giving their go for flight. So with that, just 30 seconds to go, vehicle looking healthy. Looks like we may have just squeaked in under the wind.
30 seconds and counting.
Starlink Satellites also continuing to look healthy. Why don't we listen in and watch terminal count?
T-minus 15 seconds.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressures are nominal.
Seconds into flight, Falcon 9 successfully lifting off from pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, carrying those 60 Starlink satellites into orbit. This particular booster lighting up the Florida coast for a 7th time. Now, we just began throttling down those Merlin 1D engines for maximum dynamic pressure, or max Q. That's the point when the stresses on the vehicle are the highest from the combination of the vehicle speed and the density of the atmosphere.
Max Q.
And now that we're through the point of maximum dynamic pressure, the loads on the vehicle, the structural loads, are going to drop off as the density of the atmosphere continues to decrease. And Falcon 9 continuing to speed up. We're about a minute away from 3 events. First of those is main engine cutoff, or MECO. That's where we'll shut off those 9 Merlin 1D engines. You can actually see the plume expanding from them on your camera. We shut those down.
Engine chill started.
In preparation for stage separation. That's where the first and second stages will separate from each other. First stage continuing on a parabolic arc to make its way back to the drone ship, while the second stage continues on to the third event, second engine start number 1. We actually just heard the call out there for MVAC chill-in beginning. So during that third event, second engine start 1, we'll ignite the Merlin vacuum engine that'll propel the second stage along with the Starlink satellites into an elliptical orbit. And we chill in those turbo pumps with liquid oxygen just to get them ready for ignition.
And MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
Left-hand side of your screen.
Ignition.
First stage separating, second stage ignition. Love that green glow from the TTAB ignition. Both vehicles back on their way. Coming up shortly, we'll expect to see fairing deployment off of the second stage. Look for that on the right-hand side of your screen.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Beautiful shot there of those Starlink satellites. Finally getting to see space directly. Now that we're outside of the atmosphere, we don't need those fairing halves anymore, so we'll jettison them back to Earth to recover them. As a reminder, we do have our recovery ships, Miss Chief and Ghost Searcher, waiting at the Atlantic to scoop up both of those fairing halves.
On the left-hand side of your screen there, we saw the very last remnants of night lights visible off the Florida coast. It was a pretty awesome sight there as Falcon 9 lifted off. Now there we can see second stage with a healthy glow there on the MVAC engine. As second stage heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, the first stage will execute 2 burns in order to make its way back to Earth. Now, if you happen to have followed along with our most recent launch on this past Saturday, where we launched out of Vandenberg Air Force Base,
Bermuda.
we performed 3 maneuvers in that instance because we were returning to launch site where we were landing the first stage back on land. Tonight, we are landing on the drone ship, as Shiva said before, of course, I still love you. So we only need to perform 2 maneuvers because we are continuing the arc trajectory of the first stage. So that first burn is the entry burn, and we will reignite 3 of the 9 M1D engines at the base of the first stage. And this will help to slow that stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. And then the second burn is the landing burn. This is a single engine burn that brings the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to make a soft landing
on a nominal
on
trajectory.
the drone ship. So we heard there that the vehicle's on nominal trajectory. That's good news there. At this point in time, the first stage has reached apogee and is now starting its trip back down to the ocean. Our drone ship is parked a couple hundred miles off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. It is, as you saw, a nighttime launch, and unfortunately, we can't really see anything, so we don't have very good first stage footage to show you at this point in time. But we will bring that back in once we get some landing burn action, re-entry burn action. Checking in on second stage, everything continues to look good. The 60 Starlink satellites that are on board today are joining the constellation of nearly 900 that we've already placed on orbit. These satellites are designed to provide high-speed, low-latency internet to folks like us here on Earth. And this is especially helpful for places where good internet is hard to access. First stage is continuing to coast, and it uses nothing but grid fins for that steering, as well as occasional nitrogen gas bursts for attitude control.
Stage 1 FTS is safed.
So on your left-hand side of the screen, yes, we will see the entry burn beginning.
Entry burn startup.
And entry burn has begun. And this will last for about another 20 seconds. Again, this is the first of 2 maneuvers that the first stage will perform tonight.
Stage 1, entry burn shutdown.
And shutdown of first stage entry burn. So
Stage
that
2
burn
continues to follow a nominal trajectory.
That burn was designed to slow the booster down significantly as it re-enters the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. The next maneuver will be the landing burn, and it is the final one, where we reignite just one single Merlin engine to make a soft landing on top of the drone ship. As we mentioned earlier, this is the 7th.
Stage 1, entry transonic.
We just heard that the booster is now transonic as it is re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. As I was saying, this is the 7th successful launch for this booster, and that will make this the 7th recovery attempt. Everything's continuing to look good there on the second stage. The
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
MVAC engine has begun to throttle
Stage
down.
1, landing burn startup.
There we heard the call out that landing burn has begun, so we should see that come into the screen here just momentarily.
Stage 2 FTS is safed.
Stage 1, landing leg deploy.
Landing legs have deployed. Here it comes. All right.
Nominal landing confirmed.
And for the 7th time, this Falcon has landed. This marks our 61st successful recovery of a Falcon 9 first stage.
And we have Seco.
And as the smoke clears, we can get a good view there. And we just heard the call out that we had Seco 1, or second engine Cutoff 1. So at this point in time,
Insertion.
and there we heard the call out that we have good orbit for that second stage. So now that stage 2 is, it's going to coast in this orbit for a few minutes. During this time, it will start to spin along its central axis, giving the Starlink satellites the momentum that they need to space themselves out over time as they deploy. So we're going to take a quick break here, but we will be returning at T plus 14 minutes, so stick around.
Expected loss of signal, Cape. Acquisition of signal, Newfoundland. Loss of signal, Bermuda.
back to our webcast for our Starlink launch today. Now, if you're just joining us, we had a successful liftoff at 9:13 p.m. Eastern Time, successfully recovered our first stage for the 7th time. That's a first time for us. And you're currently looking at a live view of the 2nd stage in a nominal orbit around planet Earth. We're coming up on deployment of the Starlink satellites. You can see the stack of those on your screen in just about 10 seconds. Now, over the course of the break, we began spinning the 2nd stage along its central axis. That's to give those Starlink satellites a little bit of momentum upon separation. Looks like we have a visual there.
Starlink deploy confirmed.
And call out of confirmation of Starlink deployment. So those 60 Starlink satellites gently floating away from the 2nd stage. And because of the spin on the 2nd stage, they'll start to space themselves out. Soon they'll deploy a solar array that they have on board, and then over the next few days and weeks, they'll distance themselves out further using an onboard ion thruster to make their way to an operational orbit about 550 kilometers above the Earth's surface. So overall, very exciting day for us at SpaceX. First time we have flown a booster for the 7th time. First time we have landed a booster for the 7th time. And of course, always lovely to see our payload deployment successful on the mission.
And that will bring our webcast to a close this evening. Thank you to the Range and FAA for supporting today's mission. And of course, thank you to all of our viewers, as well as those in the US and Canada who have ordered Starlink under our public beta program. If you haven't signed up yet and are interested in being part of our beta program, head over to starlink.com and sign up. Thanks for joining us and have a great evening.